It begins the way most quiet myths do, with a sigh disguised as a breeze. You open your eyes to sunlight that doesn't quite commit, thin and indecisive, filtering through leaves that shiver just enough to remind you the world's awake. You're lying beside a stream, its sound more gossip than music, and for a moment you wonder if you've been here forever or just long enough to forget why you came. Technically, though if you're honest, that title sounds more glamorous than it feels. But most days, it's moss, mud, and managing your hair in humidity. The stream hums softly, and you can smell the faint sweetness of early summer, honey, crushed grass, a hint of something floral you can't name. Somewhere nearby, bees are arguing over a flower, and the wind carries their tiny complaints downstream. You stretch, yawn, and consider the day ahead. Probably nothing much. Maybe watch a tree grow or practice your reflection game in the water. You might even talk to a frog. You're not famous like Daphne or Echo. No one carved your story into marble or painted you on pottery. You exist in the in-between, too quiet to be tragic, too ordinary to be remembered. But that's fine. Tragedy looks exhausting. A dragonfly lands on your ankle, glittering like an ornament you didn't ask for. It flickers its wings, unimpressed by your existence. You flick your toe, and it leaves. Everyone leaves eventually. You glance at the clouds. They look particularly dramatic today, billowing like they're auditioning for an epic poem. One in particular catches your attention, soft-edged, slow-moving, vaguely shaped like, well, a man, or at least the kind of man who'd forget to write. You watch it drift closer, the way you might watch someone approaching across a room, not because you expect anything, but because boredom sometimes needs a face. And then something happens that you can't quite explain. You sit up, squinting. The air feels different now, charged, but not in a thunderstorm way. More like a polite suggestion of mystery. You blink once, twice. The cloud blinks back. It's not a trick of light, it's a shape, a figure forming out of mist, lean and vaporous, with what could be eyes if you're generous about definitions. He doesn't speak, but somehow you hear him. Or maybe you imagine it. "Nice day," he says in the voice of wind moving through reeds. You should be alarmed. You are instead intrigued, because really, when your life is mostly moss, a conversational cloud feels like a development. You stand, brushing the dirt from your knees. You're new. Thought I'd stop for a while. A ridiculous thing to say, and yet somehow charming. Here's your historical fact for this section. In early Greek cosmology, clouds were often personified as beings of the upper air, Nephili, daughters of the sky. Poets wrote that they could take shape and descend, sometimes carrying messages, sometimes just wandering. This one, apparently, is wandering. He drifts lower until the sunlight catches his edges in gold. You can feel coolness radiating off him, like standing near a waterfall's mist. The breeze moves gently between you, carrying the faint scent of rain. An obscure cultural tidbit. Ancient Greeks believed that mist and vapor were not empty air, but a substance called aether, the breath of the gods. So technically, you're flirting with divinity, or weather. Hard to say. Everyone needs something. It's a strange answer, but you decide not to analyze it. Clouds probably think in riddles. Historians still debate whether the Greeks truly believed their nymphs interacted with natural phenomena, or whether such stories were metaphors for fleeting love, the kind that disappears the moment you try to touch it. You reach out a hand anyway, your fingers meet cool air, then something softer than wind, but firmer than imagination. You probably won't make it through this day, you think, but that's fine. You smile and he mirrors it, a faint curve in vapor, fragile as breath. Somewhere in the distance, Thunder murmurs like a friend clearing its throat. "Stay for a while," you say. He nods. "I was hoping you'd ask." The wind slows, as if listening. Now take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. If you're listening from your bed or your couch, you might already feel the edges of sleep soften around you. Before we continue, take a second to like and subscribe. It helps keep these sleepy myths drifting your way. And if you're awake enough to type, leave a comment. Where in the world are you listening from and what time is it there? Now, let's ease into tonight's cloudy little tragedy. The next morning smells like damp stone and indecision. You wake to find the world silvered with mist, as though your visitor exhaled over everything and forgot to take it back. The stream looks sleepy, the trees less confident. Even the birds sound hesitant, their songs muffled by vapor. He's still here, or at least something is. A curl of white rests near the reeds, breathing slowly. "Good morning," you whisper. He stirs, reshaping himself into the vague idea of a man again. Is it? Not sure yet. There's a silence between you that feels companionable in a half-awake way. You sit by the water and trail your fingers through the mist, wondering what happens next in a relationship that technically violates several laws of physics. He floats closer. You can feel the faint pull of his presence, the way air bends when it wants to hold something invisible. "What do clouds do for fun?" you ask. "It has its moments." You chuckle, half to yourself. The sound startles a frog, which dives into the stream with a dramatic splash, as if announcing it disapproves of this entire narrative. You ignore it. The cloud, your cloud, you suppose, shifts slightly, his form softening around the edges. You think you see eyes, but maybe they're just hollows where the sunlight refuses to go. You ask, "Do you have a name?" He considers this. Not very romantic. Neither are forecasts. A fair point. You rest your chin on your knees, watching him curl around a rock, leaving it glistening with dew. It's beautiful, in a quietly impossible way. Here's your historical fact. The Greeks believed that Zeus once transformed himself into a cloud to seduce a woman named Echo, or, in other versions, to hide her from Hera's wrath. Clouds were not just symbols of concealment, they were instruments of divine mischief. You wonder briefly whether you'd have stumbled into that same kind of story, if your cloud is a disguise for something larger, something watching you with amused detachment. You decide not to ask. If he's secretly Zeus, that's his problem. You pluck a wildflower and hold it up. He leans in, the petals tremble as mist collects on them, each drop catching light like tiny stars. "It's beautiful," he says, "so fragile." You sound surprised. I forget how solid things can be. An obscure tidbit. In some rural parts of ancient Greece, shepherds believed that touching a thick fog could bring luck or madness, depending on the cloud's mood. You suppose you'll find out soon which kind you've met. "Do you ever stay in one place?" you ask. He looks upward, where the sky shifts constantly. Because staying means raining, and raining means falling apart. You smile sadly. That's poetic, and mildly concerning. Comes with the territory. Historians still debate whether stories like yours were meant as cautionary tales, warnings about loving the intangible, or as gentle jokes about human tendency to personify everything that moves. Either way, you're in the middle of it now, and the moral can wait. The day passes in quiet companionship. You talk, you nap. He drifts in and out of form, sometimes a man, sometimes a cloud, sometimes just a feeling brushing your shoulder. At one point, you ask if he dreams. "Constantly," he says, "but only of places I'll never touch." You lie back in the grass and stare upward, where countless other clouds drift by, Each one could be him or no one. You suddenly feel a pang of jealousy for the sky. The mist thickens. Somewhere distant, thunder murmurs again, low and intimate. "Is that you?" you ask. He shakes his head. "Not this time." The air grows cooler. He glows faintly in the dusk like a lantern made of breath. "Will you be here tomorrow?" you ask, trying not to sound as small as you feel. "I don't know," he says. And somehow that makes sense. The night swells around you, full of crickets and slow water and quiet uncertainty. You close your eyes, not sure if you're falling asleep or just falling into story. Above you, the sky rearranges itself. And somewhere between dream and drizzle, he whispers, "Don't wait up. Morning comes with a faint drizzle that smells like yesterday's thoughts." You wake beneath a sky that looks slightly hungover, grey, wrinkled, undecided about rain. The grass around you glistens, each blade heavy with dew, or maybe with the remnants of your friend. You rub your eyes and squint upward. The clouds drift lazily across the sky, innocent, unrecognizable. Not a single one looks familiar. "Figures," you mutter. A frog croaks nearby, smug as ever. You resist the urge to throw a pebble. The air hums with soft dampness, the kind that clings to skin like a whisper you can't quite shake off. He's gone. Or maybe he isn't. It's hard to say when absence looks so much like weather. You walk toward the stream, half expecting to find a puddle shaped like regret. Instead, you find only reflections, the same trees, the same tired sunlight breaking through the mist. Everything is normal again, which somehow feels like betrayal. You kneel by the water. "So that's it then?" A breeze answers, faint and cool. You could pretend it's him, you probably will. Here's your historical fact for the section. In Greek myth, clouds and mist often symbolize the veil between mortal perception and divine reality. Gods appeared wrapped in vapor, their true forms too bright for human eyes. So maybe your cloud wasn't gone. Maybe he'd just retreated behind that ancient curtain again, waiting for the next scene. You spend the morning pretending to care about mundane things, straightening reeds, untangling vines, chasing away ants from a flower bed that doesn't even belong to you. Every small act feels like penance for wanting something impossible. By midday, the mist thickens again, curling low through the trees. The light bends strangely, and for a second, you see him. Or you think you do. He's standing, or hovering really, near the edge of the clearing, half-formed, like a thought trying to remember itself. "Back so soon?" you say, voice steadier than your pulse. He smiles, or at least his edges curve upward. "I forgot something." "Oh, your umbrella?" He chuckles. "No, you." You cross your arms, trying to look unimpressed. "That's a terrible line." "I'm new to this," he says. "Usually I just drift dramatically and hope for applause." You snort. "Well, you're learning." The air thickens as he comes closer, and the smell of rain sharpens around you. You can feel it, electric and soft, like the moment before a storm remembers its purpose. He reaches out, or maybe you do. The space between you blurs. His touch feels like cool silk, like fog curling around skin. Not solid, but not nothing either. It's strange how something you can't hold can still hold you. An obscure cultural tidbit. In some ancient coastal towns, fishermen used to whistle at the sky to lure clouds inland, believing that friendly spirits traveled with them and brought rain. You wonder if any of them ever fell in love mid-whistle. You whisper, "You shouldn't stay. You said it yourself. Staying means raining." "I know." "So why are you here?" He hesitates. "Because falling apart doesn't sound so bad." Historians still debate whether myths like this, were moral lessons or quiet metaphors for longing, the kind that doesn't expect to be satisfied, only noticed. Maybe you're part of that long argument now, a footnote waiting to be found. The drizzle grows heavier. Each drop lands softly, a cool punctuation on your skin. You look at him, but his form is already blurring at the edges, fading back into mist. You reach out again. Wait! But he's gone, melting into the air as rain soaks your hair, your clothes, your everything. You stand there until you can't tell where you end and the rain begins. Fine, you say to the empty clearing. Be that way. Then you laugh, a quiet, ridiculous laugh that feels good anyway. Because honestly, what did you expect, a happy ending in Greece? The sky rumbles softly, almost like it's laughing back. You smile, sit back down by the stream, and let the rain sing you into stillness. The rain lasts for days, not the angry kind, just the slow, contemplative drizzle that makes everything smell like earth, remembering it once was mud. The forest grows greener, the stream louder, and you've stopped counting sunrises. They all look like different drafts of the same morning. You spend your time under a small overhang of rock, watching droplets gather at the edge and fall one by one. It's hypnotic, like waiting for an apology that never quite arrives. You talk to yourself more now, to the frogs, the trees, the occasional startled bird. You even name a rock Dion after your cloudy friend, because apparently loneliness makes poets of everyone. Sometimes, in the rhythm of rain, you hear him again. A whisper that could be wind or memory or both. You still there? You ask once. No answer, except for a low rumble of thunder far away, which could mean yes or no, or stop being dramatic. Here is your historical fact. The ancient Greeks associated thunder not only with Zeus' anger, but also his presence, a sign he was listening, not necessarily smiting. It's oddly comforting to imagine that even divine silence comes with sound effects. You hum to yourself, tracing circles in the wet sand. The melody isn't anything special, just something soft, cyclical, like rain talking to its reflection. A deer wanders nearby, unbothered. You nod to it as though you're co-workers on a long, quiet shift. An obscure tidbit. Some myths claimed that nymphs could vanish into fog when embarrassed or heartbroken. It wasn't exactly dying, just temporarily dissolving into the scenery, an ancient form of ghosting, if you think about it. You smile at the thought. Maybe I should try that. But you don't. You stay solid. Maybe stubbornly so. By the third day the rain stops, the world exhales, everything gleams, the leaves, the stones, even the snails seem refreshed. You step out into the open and stretch, feeling the warmth of new sunlight. The sky looks empty again, clean, deceptively innocent. Then, in a shimmer of heat and distance, he returns. Not above you this time, but beside you. Human-shaped again, though barely holding it together. You're soaked, he says, which is objectively true and somewhat ironic. You're late, you reply. I took the scenic route. You want to be angry, but it's hard when he looks like fog trying to apologize. His outline trembles in the light, pieces of him drifting off like sighs. You take a slow breath. You can't keep doing this, disappearing, reappearing. I know, he says softly, but I'm weather. I change. You could try not to. He smiles. You could try to float. Touché. You sit together in silence. He leans against a tree, not because he needs to, but because pretending to be solid makes you both feel less fragile. Historians still debate whether the Greeks intended their minor myths, these side stories of nymphs, satyrs, and half-forgotten spirits, to mirror human loneliness or divine playfulness. Maybe it's both. Maybe that's the point. You finally say, "If you rain again, I won't wait this time." He nods, though the gesture ripples his shape like disturbed water. Fair. The breeze shifts. The smell of damp leaves rises around you. He glances at the horizon where darker clouds gather, his kin calling him home. "I should go," he says. "Of course you should." You don't stop him. But when he drifts upward, leaving a faint chill in his wake, you whisper so quietly you almost don't hear it yourself. "Come back when you forget how to leave." He doesn't answer. He just becomes sky again. You look up, and for one perfect moment, a patch of cloud above you looks like a hand reaching back. Then it's gone. The wind sighs, you sigh back. And somewhere between both breaths the world keeps turning, slow, ancient, and stubbornly beautiful. You start measuring time by puddles, how long they take to dry, how long before they forget to reflect the sky. The one near the old willow vanishes first. The one by the stream holds on stubbornly, as if expecting his return. You watch it each day, until it becomes habit, then ritual, then almost religion. There's comfort in the repetition. You sweep leaves that will just fall again. You talk to bees who don't care about your drama. You hum the same tune under your breath until it becomes a way of keeping your shape. The forest hums around you, full of lazy summer life. Flies looping, branches creaking, water always whispering secrets you can't quite catch. Everything is doing exactly what it was made to do. Except you, maybe. Do nymphs get sabbaticals? You ask the air. The air doesn't respond, though it does shift slightly, like it's pretending to consider your request. Here's your historical fact for this section. According to ancient sources like Pausanias, certain springs and groves in Greece were thought to host nymphs, who sometimes vanished for years, only to return when their favorite human places were restored or tended again. Locals believed that neglect drove them away, not divine decree. So maybe this is your fault. You could have swept the moss sooner. You could have sung more often. You could have believed in something other than weather. You lean over the stream, watching your reflection ripple with the current. For a second, you imagine you see his faint outline beside you, a shadow of a cloud softer than memory. You blink, it's gone. An obscure cultural tidbit. Greek shepherds used to name clouds after loved ones who had died, believing the spirits drifted in vapor above the hills. The practice was quiet, almost private, a way to let longing look upward. You think of that sometimes. You even try it. "Dion," you whisper, to a passing cloud that looks absolutely nothing like him. The cloud ignores you. As most gods and weather systems do. You roll your eyes, then laugh at yourself. You're talking to condensation again, you mutter. That's healthy. Still you feel lighter afterward. Maybe the act of naming things, even foolishly, keeps them from disappearing entirely. Historians still debate whether myths about ephemeral lovers were meant to console or to warn, to tell mortals that love fades like mist, or to promise that beauty, though brief, leaves something behind. You decide it's both, because you feel both. By evening the air warms again. Crickets tune up. The sky takes on that soft orange-pink hue that looks like an afterthought from a careless god. You lie back in the grass, close your eyes and let the day melt around you. Somewhere above, clouds drift by, and one of them, just one, seems to pause a little longer than the rest. You don't open your eyes. You don't need to. If it's him, he'll leave again. If it isn't, the thought of him is enough. You whisper, "Don't rain tonight." And the sky, polite as ever, holds its breath. By the next week, you've almost convinced yourself you imagined it all. Life returns to its sleepy rhythm. The stream babbles about nothing in particular. The sun performs its daily debut without complaint. You pick berries, braid reeds, talk to birds who are clearly tired of your existentialism. And then one afternoon, while resting beneath a fig tree, you feel a shadow pass overhead, soft, cool, unmistakable. You look up. He's there, or at least a very convincing cloud doing an impression of him. He's shaped less like a man this time, more like a daydream mid-sentence. Back again, you ask, trying not to sound like someone who rehearsed that line all week. Apparently, he says, his voice a faint rumble, missed my favorite stream. Sure you did. There's a pause, the kind that holds too much meaning for how little is said. Are you mad? He asks. You tilt your head. About what? Disappearing, reappearing, being me. You consider this. Maybe. But being angry at a cloud feels like yelling at an emotion. He laughs, and the sound ripples the air. You've gotten poetic. I blame you. The sunlight filters through him, breaking into faint halos. You can see dust motes floating inside his shape, tiny stars trapped in fog. He drifts lower, the air around you cooling in a familiar way. Can I stay? You sigh. Do you ever mean that? I do right now. That'll have to do. Here's your historical fact. Greek poets often describe clouds as vehicles of transformation, the medium between gods and mortals. When gods wanted to soften their presence, or mortals glimpsed the divine, the encounter came through vapor. Clouds were the interface between worlds, which means your relationship, technically speaking, is user-friendly but prone to lag. He lingers close, his form flickering as the sun shifts. You can almost see his expression, gentle, uncertain, full of static tenderness. Tell me something real, you say. I can't. I'm weather. Then tell me something true. He pauses. You're the only thing that makes stillness feel like movement. You blink. That's unfair. I know. The world holds its breath for a moment. Even the water stills. You can feel him all around you, cool mist brushing your neck, curling in your hair, lifting stray strands. You whisper. If I tried to hold you, would you fall apart? He says. If you didn't, I would. An obscure tidbit. Some ancient healers believed that inhaling morning mist could calm heartbreak, because the air at dawn was considered newly born, untouched by sorrow. You try it now, breathing in deep. It helps. A little. Historians still debate whether the nymph myths were proto-feminist cautionary tales or just poetic explanations for natural cycles. Maybe you're both. Someone who loved too much and became part of the weather forecast. You sit there together as the day cools into evening, the light bending golden through the branches. The air hums with insects and distant thunder, his cousins probably gossiping about you. When the first drop of rain lands on your hand, you don't flinch. You look at him, smile faintly, and say, "You're impossible." He nods. And you're patient. Rain begins, slow and steady. He dissolves, of course, he always does. But this time, you don't chase the outline. You just tilt your head back and let the sky kiss you instead. Maybe this is what love is, you think. Knowing it won't stay, and opening your hands anyway. The rain falls harder. The world blurs beautifully, and you, half drenched, half dreaming, laugh softly into the downpour. Because for a moment, you feel like part of the sky too. The next morning tastes like quiet. You wake to the smell of wet earth and fig leaves, sunlight spilling over everything like it's trying to apologize for yesterday's weather. Your hair still smells faintly of rain. Your clothes are stiff with dried dreams. The stream hums in the background, cheerful, oblivious. You stretch. The world feels clean again, scrubbed and reset. You, on the other hand, feel like a page that's been written on too many times. A bee lands on your knee, curious but unimpressed. You nod at it in greeting. "Don't start," you whisper. "I know." The bee doesn't care. Bees rarely do. You wander through the grove barefoot, the soil soft and cool under your toes. The air holds that perfect in-between temperature. Neither morning nor afternoon, just suspended time. The kind of air where you can almost believe things stay as they are. But of course, they don't. You pause at the edge of a field where wildflowers sway lazily, each one nodding in the same direction, like a crowd agreeing on a secret. The sky above is spotless, not a single cloud to name. You tell yourself that's good, that quiet is good, but quiet, when you're used to storms, feels suspiciously like absence. Here's your historical fact for the section. The Greek word nymph doesn't only mean spirit of nature, it also means bride. Not married, not unattached, betrothed to something larger. Every nymph in every myth is halfway between belonging and losing herself. You realize that's exactly how you feel. A little bit claimed by the weather, a little bit free. You find yourself speaking out loud again. "I don't need him," you say, as if practicing for an argument no one's attending. The breeze stirs the grass, unimpressed. You grin, shaking your head. Fine, be that way. You spend the day busying yourself with unimportant things, reweaving a vine fence that doesn't need fixing, counting the ripples in the stream, organizing pebbles by enthusiasm, yours, not theirs. An obscure cultural tidbit. Some ancient Greeks believed that rainwater collected during a full moon could cure forgetfulness. You wonder if that's true, and if so, whether forgetting would be a blessing or a betrayal. By dusk, the first cloud returns, small, unassuming, almost bashful. You squint up. "Oh no," you say flatly. "Don't you dare." It drifts closer, pretending innocence. "Seriously," you warn, "if you start getting poetic again, I'm moving to Crete." The cloud pauses, then, faintly, it chuckles. You close your eyes and sigh, half exasperated, half relieved. "Of course it's you." "I brought good weather," he says. "That's subjective." "I mean no thunder." "That's better." He hovers low, enough for the air around you to shimmer. It feels like standing near a heartbeat. "I missed you," he says. You smirk. "You say that to all the nymphs?" He laughs. "Only the ones who listen." Historians still debate whether nymphs were ever truly immortal or simply recurring, a poetic loop destined to return when mortals remembered them. Maybe love is like that too. You stand there, watching him drift above the trees, framed by the dying light. He's beautiful in that impermanent way, like a promise made of condensation. You whisper, "You always come back." "And you always wait," he answers. The truth stings gently like cool rain after heat. You can't tell if that's love or just weather again, but tonight you don't chase the difference. You let it be both. Night in Greece smells like figs, honey, and a hint of myth that never quite went away. You sit by the stream, the moon slicing silver through the water. Crickets play back up. Somewhere in the distance, an owl mutters something profound and entirely unrepeatable. He's back again, floating low, quiet. The air hums faintly where he gathers. You can almost see through him, the stars blinking faintly inside his shape. "Could you ever stay?" you ask softly. He hesitates. "Could you ever leave?" You laugh. Touché. The question lingers between you, sweet and unsolvable. You trail your fingers through the water, tracing circles that spread and fade. The stream catches starlight, scattering it like loose coins. Here's your historical fact. According to ancient Greek meteorology, yes, they had one, clouds were thought to be formed from the exhalations of the earth mixed with celestial fire, which means, technically speaking, you're dating the philosophical offspring of dirt and stars. He seems to know this. You're smiling, he says. I just realized you're literally half smoke. Flattering. Well, you shrug. It's working for you. He drifts closer, close enough that you can feel the cool brush of air against your arm. You could come with me, you know, he says. To where? The sky. You shake your head. I'd fall. Not if you learn to float. You've said that before. Because it's true. An obscure tidbit. Ancient travellers once swore that in Thessaly a certain mountain top let mortals touch the clouds and hear faint whispers, voices of nymphs, they claimed, trapped mid-conversation. The mountain, of course, was struck by lightning a few years later. You look at him. If I tried to follow, would you catch me? I'd try, he says. But you'd slip through, you're too alive for the sky, you repeat quietly. He nods. And I'm too temporary for the ground. You sit there in silence, listening to the hum of the night. The breeze moves lazily through the reeds, carrying the scent of damp moss and half-told stories. Historians still debate whether Greek myths like yours were meant to humanize the divine or divine the human, to make gods fragile or people poetic. You think maybe both are true because fragility and poetry often look the same under moonlight. He finally says, "But do you regret it?" You tilt your head. The rain? The waiting? The wanting? You think for a while. No. Wanting is the part that makes you real. The night grows stiller. The stars tilt. He starts to fade. First the edges, then the voice. Don't, you begin. He smiles faintly. I'm not leaving, just condensing elsewhere. You can't help it. You laugh. You make even vanishing sound polite. The last of him curls upward, a faint wisp dissolving into the dark. You watch until there's nothing left but moonlight. And when you finally lie back in the grass, your eyes half closed, you can still feel him, somewhere above, whispering through the quiet air. You'll see me in the morning. You wake before dawn, when the air still feels half asleep. The world hasn't decided what kind of day it will be, bright, brooding, or simply bored. The stream hums its usual tune, a little slower than usual, as if even it needs coffee. You sit up, brush dew from your skin, and stretch until your spine protests. The horizon blushes pink, the kind of fragile color that vanishes if you blink too long. Above it all, clouds, thin ones, wispy, indecisive. Good morning, you whisper. No answer, but the sky shifts slightly, like it's pretending not to hear you. You smile because pretending not to hear someone is, in its own way, a form of intimacy. You wander through the grove, trailing your fingers along damp bark, counting how many leaves cling to your hair before falling away. The world smells clean, mint, mud, and something faintly metallic. It's the scent of renewal, though it feels suspiciously like déjà vu. Here's your historical fact. Greek philosophers like Anaximenes believed air was the primary element of existence, everything condensed or thinned from it. In other words, clouds were the world halfway between being and not being, a comfortable middle. Maybe that's why you liked him. He lived in the in-between the way you do. You sit by the water and try to remember the exact sound of his voice, but voices made of vapor don't leave echoes, just impressions. A frog hops by. You nod at it. Still here, huh? It croaks once, judgmentally. You sigh. Yeah, me too. The morning grows warmer, the sun crawling lazily across the hills. You braid a garland of reeds, wear it like a crown. It's a small, silly rebellion. If you can't control the weather, at least you can accessorize. An obscure tidbit. In Arcadia, young women once left wreaths of grass and water lilies by rivers to appease naiads. If the wreath floated downstream, it meant the nymph accepted their prayer. If it sank, the nymph was offended. You drop your reed crown in the water. It floats for a moment, then slowly tilts, dips, and disappears. Typical, you murmur. Everyone's a critic. You spend the rest of the morning pretending you're fine. You hum, you skip stones, you scold bees for lack of boundaries. But every time the wind changes direction, your heart does too. Historians still debate whether myths about ephemeral lovers like yours were born from longing or warning. Maybe they were simply therapy before therapy existed, a way to say, I miss someone I can't define. By midday, the sky darkens. Clouds gather again, thicker this time. Familiar. Don't, you whisper, not yet. The first rumble of thunder answers, quiet but definite. You feel it before you see him. The air shifting, cooling, a faint electric hum behind your ribs. And then he's there, as if he never left. I told myself I wouldn't come back, he says. You smirk. I told myself I wouldn't care. Who won? You shrug. Ask the weather. For a long moment neither of you moves. He hovers close, the edges of his form trembling, uncertain. You reach out, and though your hand passes through, the space between you warms slightly. It's enough. He says, you could come with me, just for a day. To the sky? To wherever we stop pretending we're different. You laugh quietly. That place doesn't exist. He smiles. Then we'll make it. And for one absurd, impossible moment, you almost believe him. The climb begins at dawn. He drifts low, guiding you up a hill that overlooks the valley. The kind of hill that looks steeper the closer you get, like it's reconsidering your determination. The grass is slick with dew, your feet cold and raw, but you keep walking. He hovers beside you, occasionally dissolving into mist, reforming like a thought refusing to fade. The air grows thinner, cooler. Why are you helping me climb? You ask. He chuckles. Because floating is bad for your character arc. You laugh despite yourself. You read too many myths. You're in one. Tragic. Potentially romantic, he corrects. You roll your eyes. Same thing. Here's your historical fact. In early Greek myth, mountains were considered the original homes of the gods, places closer to the divine but still reachable by foot, if one was foolish or lonely enough to try. People went there seeking omens, clarity, or sometimes just quiet. You suspect you're doing all three. By midday, you reach the summit. The view stretches endlessly, rivers curling through valleys, distant villages tiny as crumbs. The clouds are close enough to touch now, soft and luminous, moving slow as thought. He stands beside you, or hovers, whatever. This is where I begin, he says. And where I stop, you reply. He looks at you, almost wistful. Maybe it's the same place, an obscure tidbit. There's an old Thessalian legend of a shepherd who claimed he'd married a cloud that took the shape of his lost love. They say when he died, his flock vanished, and mist covered the hills for 3 days. Locals still say it smells faintly of wool when it rains there. You stare at the sky, full of shifting light and pale motion. If I step into you, you say, what happens? You dissolve. And then? I don't know. Maybe you stay, maybe you change. Historians still debate whether transformation myths were metaphors for death, devotion, or the persistence of longing. You suspect it's all three, braided together like your reed crown now sinking somewhere downstream. You close your eyes and step forward until your skin meets vapor. It's cold, wet, tender, like being touched by uncertainty. He whispers, you don't have to.
I know. Then why?
because waiting is worse. He laughs softly, like thunder sighing. You'd make a terrible weather pattern. You smile. I'd make an excellent storm. The world softens around you, the air blurring into silver, your body dissolving in warmth and chill all at once. You can feel him everywhere, a low hum through your veins. For a second, you think, this is it. You're gone. Your sky. But then you hear his voice, faint, nervous. You can still go back. And you realize you don't want to. The sun flickers behind the clouds, the world below fades into a watercolor of green and blue. The air tastes like light. You can no longer tell if you're breathing or being breathed. You laugh softly, the sound breaking like rain on glass. Don't vanish, he says. Too late. The horizon stretches infinitely, and the wind hums a slow, ancient lullaby. Somewhere, far below, a frog croaks. The world keeps turning. You're not sure when the air stops feeling like air and starts feeling like memory. The clouds wrap around you in slow waves, cool, translucent, strangely heavy. You can still see the ground below, though it looks distant, painted in watercolor. Your feet no longer feel like they belong to anything solid. They're just ideas of feet. He's beside you, or everywhere really. It's hard to tell where he begins and you end. You're doing it, he says softly. You're floating. I think I'm melting. Same thing, just with better marketing. You laugh weakly. You're terrible at comfort. I'm literally condensation. What did you expect? Emotional stability? Fair. The air hums quietly. Soft, electric, almost musical. Every breath feels borrowed from a place that doesn't need lungs. Below, the forest stretches into mist, a watercolor green fading to silver. You recognize the stream glinting faintly, a slender thread tying you to everything you used to be. Here's your historical fact. Greek poets once wrote that souls of the newly dead were carried upward by winds, a gentle lift from the mortal world into the unknown. Clouds were considered the vehicle of transition, halfway between body and spirit. You don't feel dead, exactly. Just lighter, as though grief has been exhaled and replaced with something else. Still, patient, infinite, you turn to him. He's luminous now, his edges more defined. There's almost a face in there, a smile that flickers like moonlight on water. So what happens now, you ask? He shrugs, a ripple passing through his shape. We drift. For how long? Until the wind changes. You nod slowly, watching faint tendrils of mist curl around your arms. They feel like touch, but not touch. More like the memory of being held. Do you ever wish you were solid? You ask. Sometimes. But solid things break, and soft things disappear. He laughs quietly. You see the problem, an obscure tidbit. In ancient Athens, some people would whisper their wishes into small clay pots and bury them after rain, believing the gods inside clouds could hear better through wet soil. You wonder if any of those buried voices ever reached someone like him. Historians still debate whether myths like yours are about love or transformation, whether the nymph becomes air because she's transcended heartbreak, or because heartbreak is simply what transcendence feels like. You close your eyes and listen to the rhythm of wind. It's slow, pulsing, alive. He says, "You can still go back if you want." You shake your head. And tell them what? That I fell for humidity? He laughs, the sound scattering through the mist. You float together in companionable silence. Occasionally, a bird flies through you both, startled but unharmed. You can't help but giggle every time. As the day fades, the horizon burns gold. The light passes through you both, turning your shapes to translucent fire. You think, if this is vanishing, it's beautiful. Dusk settles in soft and slow, like a blanket that's a little too heavy but comforting anyway. The sun sinks into the edge of the world, dragging trails of orange and violet behind it. You drift above the forest, the shadows stretching long beneath you. For a moment, you think you see yourself down there, kneeling by the stream, hair tangled, still waiting. But it's just reflection, or wishful thinking, or both. He's quieter tonight. The air between you feels different, tense, as though the weather itself is listening. "Storm's coming," he says finally. You sigh. "Of course it is. Not from me this time." "Sure. I mean it. The wind's changing." Here's your historical fact. In Greek thought, winds had personalities and names. Zephyrus, the gentle west wind, Boreas, the harsh north, Notus, the storm bringer. Each carried its own temperament, its own kind of message. You glance around. Which one are you? "I'm the indecisive one," he says. "Doesn't get a statue." You smile faintly. "My favorite kind." The air thickens. You can feel the shift, the weight of pressure, the low growl of distant thunder. The horizon flickers, light and dark, blending in a dance that feels both old and new. He looks at you, his edges trembling. "You might lose yourself if this storm hits." "Maybe I already have." He shakes his head, or maybe the wind moves him. "No, you're still too warm." You tilt your head. Is that a compliment? An observation? The first lightning flashes far off, silent for now. The kind that paints the world in split-second truth. An obscure tidbit. Sailors on the Aegean used to believe lightning revealed hidden gods momentarily passing through the sky, brief glimpses of eternity, too bright to last. You can't help but feel like that's what this is, too bright to last. "Maybe you should go below," he says softly. "Back to the ground." "I can't." "You could try." "Why? So I can tell everyone clouds make terrible boyfriends?" He laughs, but there's sadness in it. "So you can live." You whisper. Maybe this is living. Historians still debate whether myths of transformation were punishment or mercy, whether becoming something new was meant to free or to erase. Maybe the difference depends on who tells the story. The thunder draws closer now, a deep pulse through the air. He moves nearer, wrapping mist around you like an embrace. "If you fade," he says, "I'll find you again." I know. The wind picks up, tearing through the sky in long shivers. The light flickers and everything smells like rain before it begins. You take his hand, or the idea of it, and hold on. Then, as the first bolt splits the horizon, everything goes white. When you open your eyes again, there's no sky, no ground, just sound. And you, floating somewhere between both, remembering how it once felt to be held by something that couldn't stay. You wake inside the storm. There's no up or down anymore, just rolling light, thick air, and a sound that's half thunder, half heartbeat. You drift weightless, every sense rewired, every thought stretched thin and bright. He's there somewhere. You can't see him, but you feel him, electric, restless, frightened in a way clouds aren't supposed to be. "Can you hear me?" you call out. The wind swallows your voice, then brings it back distorted, as if you're speaking to yourself across centuries. "Yes," he says at last, faintly. "I think." You can barely make out his outline, flickering and reforming. The storm tears through him, scattering bits of light that dissolve into rain. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he says. You smile grimly. "That's what they all say." Lightning cracks open the horizon. For an instant, everything glows, the sky, the water, even you. You see your reflection flash in 1,000 droplets, 1,000 versions of yourself, all drifting the same way. Here's your historical fact. In Greek myth, storms were often described as divine conversations, arguments between gods that mortals only heard as thunder. So maybe this chaos isn't destruction, maybe it's dialogue. If so, it's the loudest argument you've ever been in. You reach out, groping through air that feels like liquid light. "Hold on to something," you shout. "I'm vapor," he replies. "That's not how this works." "Then hold on to me." The wind howls like it's laughing or warning or both. You feel pressure build behind your ears, like the world's inhaling all at once. You close your eyes and think of the stream, the frog, the smell of figs, the feel of mud beneath your toes. Ground, gravity. Things that stayed. Something tugs inside you, a pull downward, insistent and familiar. You realize you're falling. He sees it too. "No," he whispers. "Don't." You smile sadly. You said everything changes. An obscure tidbit. Some ancient Greeks believed lightning could leave sky marks, glass-like scars in sand, believed to be traces of gods touching earth. Farmers collected them for luck. You wonder if you'll become one of those marks. The storm grows brighter, louder. You can feel yourself thinning, unraveling. You reach for him, fingers passing through light, through mist, through memory. Historians still debate whether metamorphosis myths were cautionary tales or promises, whether change was a punishment or a path home. You think it's neither. You think it's just what happens when love meets weather. The last thing you feel is warmth, brief, fierce, impossible. And then the world lets go. When you wake, it's raining again. Not the wild, tearing kind, just a steady, rhythmic rain, the sort that taps on leaves like fingertips keeping time. The world smells of wet bark and renewal. You're lying beside the stream, the same one that's been watching all this unfold. It babbles quietly, like it's gossiping about what just happened. Your skin is damp, your hair tangled, your heart strangely calm. You look down at your hands, still solid, still here. Above you, the clouds drift lazily, innocent as ever. You can't tell if he's among them. Maybe that's the point. You sit up slowly, every muscle sore, every breath heavy but steady. The forest hums with life again. Bees, frogs, the occasional gossiping crow. Everything just keeps going. You whisper, "Are you still there?" No answer, just the soft percussion of rain. Here's your historical fact. In ancient Greek thought, rain was considered both gift and grief. Zeus's tears, they said, or the earth's longing. Either way, it was renewal through sorrow. You tilt your face upward, letting droplets hit your skin. It feels like a conversation without words. "Fine," you murmur. "We'll call it even." You stand, stretching the mud, clinging to your ankles. The grove looks exactly as it did the first day you met him. Green, ordinary, indifferent. You walk toward the water's edge. The reflection that stares back isn't quite the same. Your hair is streaked faintly silver now, or maybe that's just light. Your eyes hold something quiet and wide, like sky seen through leaves. An obscure tidbit. Some mountain villages once told stories of cloud brides, women who disappeared into mist and returned years later, bringing rain wherever they went. They said you could recognize them by their calmness during storms. You smile faintly. Guess I'm halfway there. You wander through the grove, touching the wet bark of trees, feeling life thrum beneath your fingertips. Every sound, every scent feels sharper, as though you've been listening with the wrong kind of ears your whole life. Historians still debate whether myths like yours were written to explain the weather or to excuse the heart. But standing here, soaked and small, you realize they were probably written just to remember, because even impermanence deserves a story. You whisper one last thing to the sky. If you're out there, I hope you drift kindly. The rain softens in response. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. You take a breath that tastes like rain and sky and memory. It's enough. The stream burbles, the frogs resume their concert, and the air hums with that familiar, eternal sound of things beginning again. You smile, step into the rain, and start walking, slowly, softly, through a world that has forgotten and forgiven you all at once. And above, somewhere in the shifting clouds, something that might be laughter moves quietly through the wind. The next morning unfolds like a sigh. The storm is gone. The air feels rinsed, light, and shyly new. Mist curls low along the grass, carrying the kind of silence that sounds like recovery. You wake beneath an olive tree, the bark damp and cool against your back. A few leaves stick to your skin. One lands on your lips and tastes faintly bitter, ancient. You chew it anyway. You're not sure why it feels ceremonial. The stream beside you is quiet again, content to mind its own business. The frogs have gone back to being frogs, smug as ever. You can almost hear them gossiping. So she fell for a cloud again. You stretch and breathe. The world feels different now, not smaller, not sadder, just steadier. Here's your historical fact. Greek philosophers like Heraclitus believed change itself was divine, that nothing stayed, and that was the point. You can't step into the same river twice, he said, but you can still listen to it sing. You sit by the water and do exactly that. The song isn't beautiful, not in the way people like to imagine beauty. It's uneven, with odd little pauses and gulps of air where fish leap. But it's alive. And right now, alive is enough. You find your old reed crown half buried in mud. It's limp and crooked, but somehow it's still here. You rinse it off, wring out the water, and place it back on your head. It drips quietly. You decide to call it your persistence tiara. An obscure tidbit. Ancient priests sometimes wore crowns made of river reeds when performing rituals for renewal. The reeds symbolized both fragility and endurance, flexible enough to bend, strong enough to return upright after the flood. You look down at yours and think, same. The wind sighs across the valley, lazy and unbothered. The clouds drift higher now, farther away. You can't tell which one might be him, maybe all of them, maybe none. You whisper, don't be a stranger. The air stirs slightly as if pretending not to hear you. Classic. You lie back in the grass, feeling the earth beneath you warm, firm, patient. You close your eyes and trace the rhythm of your breath to the pulse of the world around you. Historians still debate whether myths end or simply dissolve into new ones. You decide it doesn't matter. Some stories aren't meant to close, they're meant to soften. The day passes quietly. A few villagers wander by carrying baskets of figs, barely glancing your way. Maybe you look too much like part of the landscape now. As twilight stretches across the hills, you light a small lamp by the stream. The flame flickers, dancing in the reflection of the water. The light feels human again, grounded. You whisper, thank you. You don't say who to. The lamp burns low. The frogs begin their nightly chorus. Somewhere above, a soft rumble, thunder or laughter, or both. You smile. Yeah, you murmur, I miss you too. And as night gathers around you, you finally understand. Love, like weather, doesn't vanish, it just keeps changing shape. The night deepens, the world exhales. You lie beneath the olive tree, and everything moves slower now. The air, the thoughts, the small trickle of water along the stream. Even your heartbeat seems to have synced to the rhythm of the earth. The moon hangs low, soft and enormous, spilling silver light across the grass. Every blade glows faintly, as if it's remembering daylight. The frogs have quieted, the wind hums like distant music, and the scent of rain still lingers. Green, mineral, kind. You breathe it in. The sky above is clear except for a few drifting clouds, thin, slow, content. You imagine he's among them, spread across the stars, shapeless but present, the way memory always is. You whisper, "Sleep well." And for a moment, you could swear the breeze answers, brushing gently across your cheek. You close your eyes, listening. The world is still awake, but softly so, half humming, half dreaming. Every sound feels far away and tender. The drip of water from a leaf, the crack of a branch as it dries, the faint hum of life continuing without rush or regret. You think of how stories like yours have been told for thousands of years, whispered by firelight, carved in marble, painted on vases, people trying to understand the simple, impossible act of loving something that doesn't stay. Maybe that's what myth really is, a lullaby for impermanence. The earth feels warm beneath you, as if it's holding you in place just long enough to rest. Somewhere far above, clouds shift lazily across the stars. You imagine each one carries a memory, a voice, a laugh, a moment suspended in vapor. Maybe, if you wait long enough, rain will fall again, and you'll taste him in it. But not tonight. Tonight, the air is still. You breathe slower now, letting every inhale stretch a little longer, every exhale drift a little softer. The world feels heavier, but in the good way, the kind of heaviness that anchors you back to yourself. You've walked through longing, through storm, through sky. You've come back changed, but gently so. The stream murmurs its endless song. The moonlight pools like milk across the valley. The frogs begin again, slow and rhythmic, and you, just breathing quietly, perfectly present, become part of the story that never needed an ending. So rest now. Let the sky watch over you. Let the rain remember you kindly. And if you wake to thunder, smile. It's just an old friend drifting by. CTA. If you're still awake, though you probably shouldn't be, don't forget to like this video so more dreamers can find their way here. Leave a comment with your location and the time right now. We love knowing where in the world you're listening from. Now, close your eyes, breathe. You've earned your rest. The story will keep. Good night.